All right, beloved brothers and sisters, today is Wednesday, March 27th, 2013. If you'd be so kind to get out your King James Bibles and turn to Matthew chapter 27. We're going to be in verse 1. Today, we're not going to look at today's calendar, the year 2013. We are going to go back 2,000 years to the calendar of the time of the crucifixion of Yeshua. Now, we've already covered when Yeshua rode in on the donkey colt, and that would have been, as Scripture tells us, 6 days before the Passover, and that would be, according to the calendar of the time of the actual event taking place, that would have been the 10th of Nisan, and we uncover that at the exact time that Yeshua rode in on that donkey colt, they were bringing in the lambs for inspection. The high priest was inspecting the lambs for the Passover to find the one without spot or blemish. And Yeshua fulfills the prophecy. He was presented for inspection. We covered the betrayal of Yeshua by Judas Iscariot. And we covered the Last Supper. We covered Yeshua praying in the Garden of Gethsemane and the arrest of Yeshua. Now, many Christians, Protestants, and Catholics alike will look upon Friday this week in remembrance of the crucifixion of our Savior, with Sunday being the resurrection, and once again, Rome. The Catholic Church and the Pope have Yeshua on that cross between the hours of 12 and 3 on Friday, and they call it good. You know, again, when you've been told a lie and fed a lie long enough, people will actually start to believe it. I'm here to shout out as a watchman the truth. I'm going to be a bold soldier today. Matthew 27. Verse 1. When the morning was come, all the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Yeshua to put him to death. Remember, they had to get him on that cross and off, and in that tomb before the Passover. Jesus rode in on the 10th of Nisan, 6 days before the Passover. The Passover would have been on Thursday, the 15th of Nisan, which has Yeshua, the crucifixion, taking place on a Wednesday, the 14th of Nisan. And all you have to do is to get into the Word. So the actual crucifixion takes place on a Wednesday, roughly between the hours of 12 and 3 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon on the 14th of Nisan, not on Friday. And the resurrection did not take place on Sunday. It took place on around the 3 o'clock hour of the Saturday, the Sabbath. Continuing on, verse 2. And when they bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor. Then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, repented himself and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned, and that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they said, What is that to us? See thou to that. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. I want to touch on this for one moment, because right now we're in the book of Matthew, and it depends on which disciple is recanting the events of the times. And this is where some people will say, well, you see, the Bible is written by man and it contradicts itself, and it really doesn't, especially in this passage. Here we see Judas Iscariot went and hanged himself. Well, other accounts we might read, but all his bowels gushed out. Now, looking at Matthew is giving the account of when he hanged himself. The account of all his bowels and inwards gushing out would be after he was cut down. They're not going to leave him hanging. Someone will cut him down, and the body being bloated. This is what generally takes place. I just want to clear that. Picking it up in verse 6, and the chief priest took the silver pieces and said, it is not lawful for to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood. Now, back at this time, the chief priest, there is a new law that they cannot punish anyone with a death sentence. That is completely out of their hands. So it's unlawful for them, since they can't sentence anyone to a death sentence. It's not lawful for them to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood. And they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. So they could do that. They couldn't put the money into the treasury, but they could go and purchase the potter's field for strangers to be buried in. Wherefore that field was called the field of blood unto this day. I'm just trying to give you some things that maybe you are unaware of when we're looking at and trying to discern the scriptures. Verse 9, then was filled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, and they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued, whom they of the children of Israel did value, and gave them for the potter's field. And the Lord appointed me. And Yeshua stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, art thou the king of the Jews? And Yeshua said unto him, thou sayest. And when he was accused of the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. Then said Pilate unto him, hearest thou not how many things they witness against thee? And he answered him, to never a word, insomuch that the governor marveled greatly. Now I want to make one thing clear, because depending again, we're in the book of Matthew, as depending on which disciple is giving an account of the events of the time. We understand that Pontius Pilate, now he is there because of the Passover. He's there on the Nisan the 14th, because the Passover is Thursday, the 15th of Nisan. He's there, and so is Herod. That's why they have gathered. And he is from under Caesar's rule. And Herod is not a Jew, but they are there. And that's the reason why Pilate sends Yeshua over to Herod, if you read another disciple account. Then said Pilate unto him, hearest thou not how many things they witness against thee? To never a word, insomuch that the governor marveled greatly. Now at that feast the governor was wont to release him unto the people a prisoner whom they would. Now he has already sent Jesus over to Herod, who happened to be there also. Now Herod marveled at Yeshua. He heard many things, and he wanted no part of this, and it wasn't up to him. He wasn't even Jewish, but as far as being, he heard about the miracles and the healing and the raising of the dead, and as far as he was concerned, he made Peter the Son of God. He don't want no part of that. He sends him back to Pontius Pilate. Picking it up at verse 16, and they had then a notable prisoner called Barabbas. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, whom will ye that I release unto you, Barabbas or Yeshua, which is called Christ? For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. When he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife sent unto him, saying, have thou nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. Speaking of Yeshua. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude that they should ask Barabbas and destroy Yeshua. The governor answered and said unto them, whether of the twain will ye that I release unto you? They said, Barabbas. Pilate saith unto them, What shall I do then with Yeshua, which is called Christ? They all say unto him, Let him be crucified. Crucify him. And the governor said, Why? What evil hath he done? But they cried out the more, saying, Let him be crucified. When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but that rather a tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See ye to it. Then answered all the people and said, His blood be on us and on our children. Then released he Barabbas unto them. And when he had scourged Yeshua, he delivered him to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Yeshua into the common hall, and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. And they stripped him, and put him on a scarlet robe. And when they had platted a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head, and a reed in his right hand, and they bowed the knee before him, and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews! And they spit upon him, and took the reed, and smote him on the head. And after that they had mocked him, and they took the robe off from him, and put his own raiment on him, and led him away to crucify him. This is where he is beaten, unrecognizable. And from what my research shows from the old English translators, that it was such a horrifying event that took place, the beating that Jesus took. They could not put it down. They could not translate it. It was just so horrific. He was beaten unrecognizable. His beard was ripped off of his face. Verse 32. And as they came out, they found a man, a Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear his cross, because Yeshua was into such agony. The flesh ripped off his back. He couldn't walk anymore. And when they were come unto a place called Golgotha, that is to say, a place of a skull, they gave him vinegar to drink mingled with gall. And when he had tasted thereof, he would not drink. And they crucified him, and parted his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets. They parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots. And sitting down, they watched him there, and set up over his head his accusation, written, This is Yeshua, the King of the Jews. Now, if we really get into study and research and the Septuagint, the high priests were really upset with Pilate for putting the King of the Jews. And Pilate wrote that with his own hand, because Pilate was off the hook. He was saying this man was innocent. He is who he said he is. And that really upset the high priest. Then were there two thieves crucified with him, one on the right hand and another on the left. And they that passed by reviled him, wagging their heads, and saying, Thou that destroyest the temple and buildest it in 3 days, save thyself. If thou be the Son of God, come down from that cross. Likewise also the chief priests, mocking him with the scribes and elders, said, He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he be the King of Israel, let him now come down from that cross, and we will believe him. He trusted in God, let him deliver him now, if they will have him. For he said, I am the Son of God. The thieves also, which were crucified with him, cast the same in his teeth. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Yeshua cried out with a loud voice, saying, Ele, Ele, lama? That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Some of them that stood there, when they heard that, said, This man calleth for Elias. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar, and put it on a reed and gave him to drink. The rest said, Let us see whether Elias will come to save him. We will continue.
Yeah.
Yahweh.